What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Sports Weekly. I'm Christian Royston.
I'm Logan Shanks.
I'm Brett Twellmeyer.
I'm Pablo Markovic.
And we got an exciting day for you guys. Got spring football right around the corner. Obviously, still basketball talk too, but with transfer portal, all that jazz. So, I mean, the men got a new big guy, which they're really kind of doing what we kind of hope they would do.
Yeah, so they got Branton Chatfield from Seattle U, and this kind of feels to me like instantly when I saw this feels like a Robert Jones kind of, get out in the portal where it's kind of an underdeveloped guy. I mean, he's probably a little bit better than when Robert Jones came to Iowa State after his first 2 years at Denver, but just kind of feels like a developmental guy who's experienced, at a different level. And I kind of doubted it at first. I'm like, okay, this guy's coming from Seattle U. Like, there was kind of a decent team in their conference. He averaged around 9 points per game last season, but you do have to trust TJ Ottsberger and J.R. Blunt when they do go out and get these guys. Because, we've seen guys like, I talk about Robert Jones coming in, but then also like, Jackson Pavletsky coming in and still showing some value. Across Keyshawn Gilbert, some guys that, maybe are doubted at other places and they just come see potential in them. So it's exciting, but definitely another big that's going to help him out a lot next year.
Yeah, and that's the one thing you can't coach is size, and he's 6'10", same size as Robert Jones. Mm-hmm. And then, they already got Deshaun Jackson at 6'11", so, they almost got bigger. Or they are getting bigger going into next season, especially if you consider that JT Rock is going to still be on the team. So, with what they're doing, I think, they're set on guards because none of the guards really left. They really just need to fill in those big men spots, and so far they've done a great job at doing that.
Yeah, and this is definitely like a position that they knew. Everyone knew towards the end of last season where with how many guys that you had graduating, Robert Jones, Trey King, Hassan Ward, all those three big forwards leaving, you needed someone to come in. And yeah, having JT Rock out there is going to help. But, Deshaun Jackson and Branton Chatfield going to, fill in those holes pretty nicely, hopefully. And, it's just going to be different to see what they're going to be able to offer because, Robert Jones and the way, him, Trey King, and Hassan Ward, I guess not really Hassan Ward as much, but the way Trey King and Rob Jones play, it kind of gets a little stale. But, Deshaun Jackson, definitely kind of an above-the-rim type of guy. And, it'll just be a different fit for this Iowa State offense, or I guess just Iowa State in general, who, definitely do need to tweak some things going into next year.
Yeah, that's for sure. They need something to get over that Sweet 16 hump. And then on the other side, the women's team lost one of their big women. So,
yeah. So besides gaining a transfer, we've lost yet another key potential bench piece for Iowa State. Isnell Nadabu also entered the transfer portal, and it's never good to lose somebody, even though she did not contribute the most offensively with Iowa State, but it's still not good to see because, the locker room and stuff.
Yeah, she was definitely a key piece off the bench. She did start the year just because she had that experience that Audie didn't have, but Audie picked it up really quickly. And my thought on this is she probably just didn't want to play second fiddle to a younger player like Audie because she's entering her senior year. She's only got 1 year left of this. She may take a COVID year, but this is really the last chance that Nellie's going to have a chance to be a big somewhere. So I don't blame her for taking the chance and going in the portal, but this is her third time hitting the portal. So, I hope it works out for her, but I get it. Playing behind Audie's got to be a tough thing to do.
And with Nadabu also, saw her late season also kind of develop, in those key minutes, especially off the bench. But also now that you really think about that, Iowa State's bench is really missing a lot of key pieces now because, we kind of had the starting lineup already somewhat developed or pretty much developed. But, we've had almost half the team transfer, which is a big issue for next season, for right now at least.
Right, next season you're really only returning Emily Ryan and then 4 of your freshmen because Bristow's in the portal and she actually did find a new home. She's going to be transferring in conference still to Texas Tech. So we were talking about it of her being homesick and probably going to a Texas school. We got our answer, and she will be at a Texas school, and she'll be playing against her old teammates next season.
You know, she already got some experience playing in Lubbock earlier this season when Iowa State went down there and unfortunately lost, you know, but she did end up playing well. You know, she got 10 points off the bench, and, you know, I'm hoping that Iowa State does get to play Texas Tech more than once this next season because, you know, we get to really, not really put it to her, I guess, but, you know, make sure that, you know, she chose. She should have decided to stay, as I would like to say. Yeah.
And then I think that they will be coming to Ames because last season they played them once. It was on the road in Lubbock. So I can almost guarantee that they're going to be coming to Ames, and she'll be back playing in her former stadium that she used to call home. So that'll be interesting. And then just kind of taking a look at the Texas Tech roster. They're returning a couple bigs. 2 players over 6'5" are returning. And we know that Jalen has some height to her, but it'll be interesting to see how she can fit into that offense and that defense.
And, you know, Jalen Bristow picked Texas Tech today. I want to say on the men's side, we got the first, you know, transfer going out of Iowa State who picked their new home, which was Jackson Pavletsky going to Ohio, which doesn't surprise me because I figured he was going to be going back down to the mid-major. But I think he's also going to be a starter over at Ohio because, you know, he's a much better player than he came in at Iowa State. But kind of like with Isnell, kind of new, you know, with how many people were in front of him, I'm not sure where he was going to find playing time.
Yeah, plus, I mean, that conference, he should find some success in because it's definitely not as defensively intense as the Big 12.
Right, but I mean, he's a way better defensive player, so he might end up being
so
maybe
he could
the
compete
best.
well against the offenses.
Yeah, he might end up being probably one of the better defensive players on that team, especially coming
true.
through Otzelberger's system. And, you know, he's going to kind of get back up to, you know, getting more than just like 5, 8, 10 minutes per game. I can see him at a starter, and, you know, it's going to be exciting to see what he does next year.
Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, I like what you guys said about Jalen Bristow, you know, possibly coming back to Ames. I don't think she'll get the Tyrese Hunter treatment.
No.
I would hope not.
Yeah, no.
Who is
He
also
doesn't
back
deserve
in the
it.
portal.
That's true.
Also in the portal again.
Yeah, but I mean, it still should be interesting to see. I mean, it's always nice. I mean, that's kind of what Aubrey Jones kind of dealt with when she got back here a couple times. So it's always nice to have that rivalry just still exist.
You know, she's a good play. She's a good bench piece. It's like we talked about with Nadabu. Also, you know, she's a versatile forward who should be able to really thrive in that Red Raider offense. And, you know, it will be, and I wouldn't get like the Tyrese Hunter treatment, but, you know, it will be something special for her, I'd assume, if she does come back to Ames this next season.
And when you look at those 2 players, Jalen and Pav, they can definitely thrive in the new systems that they're going to be a part of.
That's kind of my favorite thing about the transfer portal is these players don't really like have a lot of success here. You know, obviously Bristow was like really good in her role, and same with Pav for a good chunk of the season. But I mean, they're going to definitely come into their own in a different scenario. So we just kind of have to hope that they find that.
And I remember now actually that I think Naidu, it was today or yesterday, chose that she's actually going to Colorado. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Another Big 12 school that's coming in. next
Exactly.
season.
So I'm like 90% sure I saw that. So
Plus, Colorado is really good.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
could be interesting.
I think she'll be good there. So
Yeah,
Let's
that's
hope
true.
so.
Just looked it up.
Yeah,
I
she
do
went
to Colorado.
I was right when you guys were talking about that. I couldn't remember if, you know, Jalen was the only one from the women's side that picked, and I just remember that. Yeah, so Nye will be going over to Colorado, like you guys said, another Big 12 school coming in, and we don't really know their schedule either, so maybe she'll be making her way back to Ames, Iowa. Again, probably getting a pretty nice treatment, though.
Yeah, I would assume more of a warm welcome just because of her long-term tenure with Iowa State. You know, helped them win the Big 12 championship 2 seasons ago. So, you know, I mean, compared to Jalen, obviously she will most likely get more of a warm welcome, but that also depends on if Colorado's going to be coming to Ames or we're going to be having to travel to Boulder.
And it's interesting, too, to think that they're going to be, I mean, more than likely matching up against each other.
That's true.
On different teams. So that'll be kind of exciting to look forward to.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things coming out of the transfer portal, as opposed to in the past where it's like, put your whole career here. But yeah,
And the fact that you can be immediately eligible helps a lot, too.
Yeah. Although could it be changed because I do remember our politics editor Cleo downstairs was telling me that the new NCAA rules where there's academic requirements, so that could change. So that's something we'll have to keep. All of us, I guess, will have to keep our eye on for the new incoming transfers. But
Yeah, I mean the transfer portal is just always changing. So
yeah, it's always going to be messy. So doesn't surprise me.
it is what it is. So the spring football game is this Saturday. Open to the public. Should be a good test of where they're at currently. It's usually played in an offense-defense format, kind of loose scoring, not really extremely competitive, just kind of a good place to show off the position groups.
Yeah, and speaking of like the position groups, one of the ones I'm looking forward to watching the most is the wide receivers. You know that Higgins and Knoll are definitely going to be that 1-2 punch, but that third spot, I think, honestly, from what I've heard, is wide open when it comes to, the transfer. Isaiah Alston, Daniel Jackson coming back, and also Benny Nagoye. We saw Benny Nagoye have that one catch at the Liberty Bowl, which is awesome to see. Daniel Jackson had, a pretty solid season. He stayed healthy, so that's really all you can ask from him. He's kind of dealt with injuries. And then Isaiah Alston, also someone that, is kind of working through an injury right now, but he's been really explosive. So, overall, it's just going to be interesting to see what those guys are going to offer with, Nolan Higgins being, the primary receivers out there.
Yeah, especially with the fact that they want to air the ball out more.
Oh, yeah.
You really have a lot of guys that can stretch the field, that can make contested catches, really excel with the way that Rocco Becht plays. So, it should be interesting to see kind of how they adapt to what could be a new system.
Yeah, because, we were talking about Rocco's probably going to, with how much they're going to want to air the ball out, Rocco's probably going to end up throwing the ball close to 30 times a game. So that third wide receiver is probably going to get at least, 3-4 catches maybe a game. So you're definitely going to want to, have a good guy out there. And they, could obviously swap guys in and out, but who's going to really be that primary third wide receiver next to, two veteran receivers that have really proven themselves, especially Higgins last year.
Oh, yeah. And I know that was also a group that you guys were a little bit excited about, too. It's hard not to be excited about the wide receivers.
Yeah, when you just talk about like Jalen Knoll coming back for probably his final season here is going to be exciting, and I like him as a returner too. He's pretty good, pretty vital for their special teams. And talking about Alston, he really intrigues me. The Army receiver. I hope he'd get a bigger role in this Iowa State offense, especially with how talented the group is. So it's one of the groups that's one of the big groups to watch, I'd say, come Saturday.
Yeah, when it comes to Alston being on that Army team, he led the team in receiving yards last season, but only played 4 games. So that kind of shows how much Army does not throw the ball. And now he's getting into an offense that's going to probably be a little bit more pass-heavy, I'd probably say. So I'm definitely intrigued to see what he can do this season. And then with Knoll, his speed is just unreal. So I think that he can, finally have a breakout season, hopefully, in his senior season.
Yeah, I like that you bring that up about Army because I think we looked it up. I feel like they passed the ball definitely less than 100 times last season.
So in terms of completions, I believe they ended up having 60 or 50, somewhere around there, completions on the season. And Alston, I believe, had 9 or 11 of those catches with 2 touchdowns. So just really run heavy. It's definitely, I feel like for him, it's probably going to be different getting into this offense. But, the explosive threat is there for him. So, I just really hope that we're going to be able to see him play on Saturday because, like I said, he's been kind of dealing with an injury, with, why he only played four games last season. So, I'm just hoping he's going to be out there and we can watch him play.
Yeah, and I think even if he's out there for a limited amount, it'll be good just to see how he plays with the rest of the team. So, and the position group that I'm looking forward to is, kind of boring, but how I love the trenches. Offensive line is where I'm going to be keeping my eyes on because I kind of want to see if Ryan Clanton has really whipped these guys into shape. We saw how good they were in pass protection last year. Really was the run game that they said they were going to impose their will on it. We'll kind of see if that's true because it was kind of true in some games, especially when Abu Sama was on the field. But you look at the game against Texas or Memphis, and you kind of want to see the offensive line group do a little bit more.
Yeah, and you're asking for a little bit more, but I don't know what statistics we can pull out from this, but in terms of from 2022 to 2023, having Ryan Clanton here for that offensive line, they took a massive jump. I mean, especially in the pass protection, what you talked about. I mean, they didn't, from what I remember, I don't think they gave up a sack in the first, was it 3 or 4 games of the season?
It was a while.
Last year. So, I mean, they've definitely become one of the better, maybe possibly the best pass protection in the Big 12. So, but, with a little inexperience in the run game, from the tailbacks, you are going to want to see a little bit of a better, run blocking for that group. And, it's a pretty veteran group up there with Jared Hufford coming back. I think that's pretty huge. So, I mean, you're just hoping they can take another big leap in this offseason.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing to me is, I guess, how big they are. Because, I mean, we've been hearing that they're putting on a good amount of size. I mean, everybody is. That's kind of, to me, that was kind of the thing that pushed them to a good season last year, was they got a new strength and conditioning coach. So they went from that 2022 season to 23, and then they made a big jump in size, and they were actually able to compete with a lot of Big 12 teams. And now they're just getting bigger, stronger, faster. I mean, really, if they're the same group, I mean, they retained all their starters. If they're the same group but bigger, I mean, I don't see them having really any issues next season.
And you talk about one guy on the offensive line that's really going to be one to watch this season is obviously Brendan Black. In his first season last year, as coming in as a freshman, I mean, nobody expected him to make 7 starts at right guard for Iowa State. So I mean, to see him progress how he did over the season, and especially late season, how he helped that veteran offensive line was huge. And I'm very excited to see what he'll do next season, along with this pretty much the same guys this upcoming season.
Yeah, what I'm looking forward to with this offensive line this season is Ryan Clayton's taken over as the run game coordinator. So we know how good they were in pass protection last year. They only gave up 14 sacks all season, which was tied for 11th nationally and the least amount the entire season, which is incredible. And now that you're having this focus with the offensive line and the running game, and we know that Abu Sama is going to be coming back and he'll be the guy there. And we know that they're going to probably be a little bit more pass heavy probably. So having him taken over as the run game coordinator, I think will open up a lot of things for this offense.
Oh, yeah, it should.
Yeah. And then jumping into the defensive side of the ball, one position group I'm looking forward to, not just for Saturday, but for next season, is the linebacker group. Getting back the linebacker coach, Colby Cratch, from his past season at North Texas last season. I think from when talking to him, he seems like one of those guys that's really tough leadership by committee guys. When we talked about Gary Vaughn leaving, I'd be leaving one of those gaps for leadership in the linebacker room. But then he talked about guys like Will McLaughlin, Jack Sadowski, and multiple other guys that could potentially lead that group, and also Caleb Bacon. So, I'm really excited to see what this linebacker group's really going to do next season.
And you talk about all those names there, and it might just be there's not going to be one singular guy. It could just be a group of guys, or maybe just one big unit that ends up leading this group this season.
Yeah.
And it's overall a pretty young group, I would say, but pretty experienced, because Caleb Bacon's probably going to walk in as a starter for that group, as will Jack Sadowski, who both saw a lot of time, and Will McLaughlin. So you're losing a big piece, in Gary Vaughn. But I think, you just got to, plug in another guy there. And I think, especially with the leadership of the linebacker coach, it definitely seems like an all right, well, next guy up mentality.
And it's such an important group, too, because with the have another off season this spring season. They've put on some size. We should be able to see what they can do, because they were pretty much all Swiss Army knives last year. So if they can just continue to grow on their variety skill sets, I see them being the star group of the defense.
Yeah, and then that other defensive group that I was kind of looking at was those defensive backs, part of this 3-3-5 system. Huge part of it. And you're losing TJ Tampa to the NFL draft, likely going to be an early round pick, first or second. But then you're looking at all these other guys. You've got Jeremiah Cooper, Miles Purchase, Malik Verdon. There's a lot of guys there that are coming back and have a lot of experience. And we know that they're returning a lot of starters across the board. So it'll be interesting to see who can maybe take over into TJ Tampa's spot. And then another player that I really wanted to highlight too was Jontez Williams. And I know that you're pretty high on him too, of becoming a receiver and then getting over to the cornerback position. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, Jontez, getting to talk to him at the press conference was a couple weeks ago maybe now. So, being that transition really helps him become a DB, kind of having that experience from the other side of the position. What their kind of footwork is going to be, what kind of routes they kind of run. So I know he didn't really have much of a huge role last season because of the depth in the position group. But, with TJ gone, I feel like he's going to really step up his game next season. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I mean, other guys like Jamison Patton and Bo Freeler, Darian Porter's getting a lot of talk as well. It seems like every year coming in the offseason, we're talking about Darian Porter making a big impact. I think he's going to probably see more time at the cornerback position as well this season. But, I mean, you've got your veterans. You also got your young guys that are developing like Jontez and Jamison Patton. So, I mean, I feel like, with having that 3-3-5 defense, they have a ton of guys that can play in that secondary and make plays. I mean, pretty much, I want to say almost everyone that we've named off from last season, maybe outside of Darian Porter and Jontez Williams, had an interception last year. So they proved that they can, have turnover plays.
Yeah. And I mean, you talk about Darian Porter, and I mean, he just has that length. He's a really tall defensive back, really long, and he has athleticism. And I mean, that's something that you can't coach. So, I mean, if they expect him to be in a more starting role, I feel like they can get him up to speed or get him more up to speed as to what he was. And I mean, we've seen players take pretty big jumps in the offseason. I mean, TJ Tampa before last season, probably 21 going into 22, he worked a lot to get to where he was in 2022. So should be interesting to see. Also with some of them coming off of injury. I know that was a room that was somewhat riddled with injury. Seeing Leak come back should be pretty good because, I mean, he's an explosive defensive back. And, I mean, he hits hard. So, I mean, that should be fun to see. And, I mean, I guess that's all of our groups that we're excited to see. I mean, I'm just excited to see every group play. I'm so excited to see how Rocco does, if we see J.J. Cole take some snaps, see, Abu, see if he's still, tearing up the ground.
Yeah.
Should be a lot of stuff to look forward to. So we'll have more for you guys after the spring game. Hope everybody can get out there, have some fun, watch some football. It's always nice to be watching football in the spring. Don't get that opportunity a lot. So
And it's free.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's free.
So no reason not to. So thank you guys for watching. We will see you again with another episode of Sports Weekly.